Okay, so on day 2, we made the final dough, mixed everything together, the flour, the water, let that autolyse, then we added the starter and the salt, and then you let it sit until it's double. This is a new house we're in, and so it was a little cooler, and so it took a little longer to double, and by then I decided to go to bed, so I just put it in the refrigerator for the night, which you can easily do just to slow down the rising. So now I'm going to kind of finish the end of day 2, and that's absolutely okay that I've delayed it by a little bit. So I'm going to take this out of the bowl. You can also use shower caps if you don't want to use plastic wrap. Saves a little bit on plastic wrap. You want to be kind of gentle with it so you don't flatten all that nice bubbles that you've just created. Okay, you can see it's risen quite a lot. And because I made enough for 4 loaves, I'm going to divide this into 4. You can be very specific and measure it if you want every loaf to be exactly the same. Or you can just eyeball it. Try not to pull on it too much. Okay, kind of eyeball it again. And of course you can make these into whatever size you want. You could cut them into rolls. You cut them into a baguette shape. You can cut them into anything that you want. So they can be bigger, smaller, whatever you like. I'm just going to put these aside. Okay. So for each one, you want to think about what you're going to do, but generally you put it into a ball shape first, you let that bench rest, and then you actually shape it into whatever shape of dough that you're going to use. So I'm just going to put these into balls first, and we'll let it bench rest. So you can pat it down a little bit. Some people pat it down quite a lot. Some people are super gentle with it. I'm kind of in between, okay? And then you can just kind of pull it. You're just going to bring it into a ball shape. You don't need to work it a lot. You can try not to get too many of the bubbles out. Pull it towards you. You can even rotate a little bit as you pull it towards you. And that will give you a nice shape on your ball. You don't need to make it super tight at this point. Okay, again with the next one. Okay, again, bring it towards you, rotate a little bit. You might see that there's some bubbles forming on the top, and that's quite okay. Okay, you can let that bench rest. They'll spread out a little bit, so you don't want to put them too tightly together. Okay, I'll do it with the 3rd and the 4th as well. I like to just cover them. You can cover them with the plastic wrap that you had. Save using more. You can cover it with a bowl. And just let it bench rest for about 10 to 45 minutes. Okay, the tighter you've made the ball, you might want to leave it closer to the 45-minute mark. Just lets it relax a little bit, and that will allow you, when you decide to, when you go to form it into your oval shape or your round shape or whatever shape you want your bread to be, it's going to be a lot easier to form because you've given it this bench rest time. So I'm going to do the same with the other 2, okay? But let it bench rest for 10 to 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and actually form it and put it in the proofing baskets, or what's also called bannetons. Okay, so it's been at least 10 minutes, and they've rested a little bit, and so now I'm going to put them into their final shaping, and then I'm going to put them into proofing baskets. It's called a proofing basket or banneton. It's made of wicker. You do not bake it in these. You'll cook your bannetons if you do that and ruin them. This is just for proofing, and the benefit of these is it has all these little ridges, which creates more surface area on the bread, and that gives you a little bit crustier crust, which some people really like. It also gives it a nice image because you see the lines on the bread, which some people like as well. You do not have to use a banneton. You could just put it in any kind of a bowl, any kind of a container, and just line it with a dish towel. Linen is good because cotton can leave little bits of towel, and you don't want that on your bread, of course. But anything will work, whatever you happen to have in your kitchen. So you don't have to run out and buy bannetons, but they're certainly nice if you end up doing a lot of baking. Okay. Okay. So how you do the final proofing depends on the shape that you're going to use. So I have two bannetons here that are circular, okay? You'll notice that one has a little cotton liner on it. Some people like to use the cotton liners, some people don't, it doesn't matter. Some people say that rye should be done with the liner, without certain types of sourdough. It doesn't really matter. It might depend if you want to put a certain kind of top on it. I just do it for fun, some with the liner, some without. Okay? Some people have problems with the dough sticking in their proofing baskets. So I always recommend rice flour. You can use all-purpose flour, any kind of flour, bread flour, but I find it does stick a little bit, whereas I've never had it stick if I use rice flour. It's a little bit starchy feeling, so maybe that's why it doesn't stick. So you can be quite liberal with your flour. When you dust it, you want to make sure it gets in all the little crevices and cracks. Okay, just kind of tap it around, or use your fingers. This will also help to give your bread a nice crusty crust. Okay, just rub it all around. And do not wash these. So once you are finished with them each time, just if there's a little moisture in them, you just leave them out to dry. If they do get a bit of crusty flour bits on it, you can use a brush to brush them out. But if you're liberal enough with the flour, you shouldn't have to do that. But be very careful that you don't cook them. Don't put them in soapy water, anything like that. If you got a little bit extra, just put it in the next one. So that's pretty good right there. Okay. And I'll do that with all the bannetons before I go to put the dough in. Okay. At this point, you want to be careful that you don't have a lot of excess flour, because when you go to fold it, you don't want to end up with excess flour in between your folds, or that's going to be inside your bread and it's not going to look or taste very delicious. Okay. If you do need a little bit of flour because it's sticking, that's fine, but try to use it very sparingly. Okay. So take your dough, okay, put it upside down because that's the pretty side. Okay. And again, I'm doing circular bread, so I'm going to be keeping it in a circle. Okay. So I can just tap it out a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to be a little bit more firmer in my formation. You'll see a lot of different ways that people do this on YouTube videos, or different ways that people do it. Okay, you can kind of cup it, and that will just give you a nice seal on the bottom. Okay. So you can see the difference. This is a nice perkier ball, whereas this one that's been bench rested, it's a little bit more smooshed down, a little bit softer. Okay, and now this is ready to put into my proofing basket. So I take my proofing basket. Okay, you want to make sure that the pretty end is going to be on the top of your bread when you bake it. So to do that, you have to put it in upside down. Okay, some people like to put nuts or sunflower seeds or something on their bread. That's absolutely fine. I don't recommend putting it inside the banneton because you're going to have some moisture there, and it's going to make your seeds a little bit soggy, and it might stick to your banneton a little bit. So you can put it on after they've already been in the bannetons, when you're ready just to put them in the oven. Okay. So this is going to get covered just lightly with plastic wrap. And at this point, you can leave it sit out on your countertop for about 3 hours or so, again till it's about doubled, and then you can bake it right away. I'm not going to be baking this tonight, so I'm going to put this directly into the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow take it out, and then at that point you're going to let it sit for about 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on how warm your kitchen is, until it's doubled at that point. Okay, so I'm going to continue that with the other 3, and then, like I said, put it in the fridge until tomorrow. Okay, I thought I should show you a different shape. So I showed you the round shape, which is called a boule. And now I'm going to show you an oval shape. This is called a bâtard, or an oval shaped loaf of bread, because the way that you form it at this point is different than the other way that I did it. Okay, so I'm going to take the second one that I formed, which I think was this one. Okay. So again, it's bench rested. I'm going to take it, if your surface is a little wet, or if your dough is a little bit sticky, you can put a little bit of flour down, but you don't want it to get too floury, okay? And so at this point, you want it to be an oval shape. You don't want it to end up round. So you flatten it out a little bit. Again, some people flatten it out quite a lot because they don't want lots of holes in it. Some people like lots of big holes, so they'll flatten it out a little more, okay? And you put your thumbs together, and you start furthest away from you, and you bring it up, go to the edge, and you push it in. Okay, create a little bit of a seal. Okay, you can do that again one more time. Bring it up and create a little seal. Okay, at this point, you got these little ends that are sticking out. Again, make sure you don't have any excess flour on your hands. Take those little ends and tuck them in. Okay, you don't have to be really violent with it, just gentle enough that it seals. Okay, and then one final time over, and you're going to seal that at the bottom. Okay, you can roll it around a little bit, make sure you got that nice seal on there. Okay, I'll turn it this way so you can see. So now you got a hot dog shape, or as I said, that's called a bâtard. So I put rice flour in my oval shaped banneton. Okay, remember I want the top of the bread, when I bake it, that's going to go to the bottom, and the seam or the seal is going to be at the top. So I flip that over, okay, and again I'm going to cover that with plastic wrap, and because I'm not baking it tonight, it's going to go in the fridge and take it out tomorrow.